Hello, people. I'm going to start in just a minute. Just a minute. Hello, 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 hello. Let me get a drink. Wow, I got my very first 2-month resub. That is a very special occasion. I didn't realize I went affiliate a month ago. And now we're already full Twitch streaming partner. That's amazing. I don't think, for my purposes, partner is any different than affiliate. But while we're waiting another minute or two for people to show up, I kind of want to know what partner does for me that affiliate doesn't. Hopefully everybody gets streaming quality options at the start now. The dashboard, which I'm not showing right now because who knows what private information is going to be there, it really doesn't look any different. I don't seem to have much in the way of dude, we have 25 subscribers. That's decent. Am I going to demo or say more about the low-level multi-threading feature? I want to implement it soon. It's not implemented yet. And I'm working on the game right now, and so I'm not doing compiler stuff on a day-to-day basis right now. But I want to get back to a point in about a week or so when enough game stuff is done that I can do compiler stuff again. So it's going to take a little bit. Sorry, I know people are excited that I said I had an idea there. It's just going to take a little bit for me to get to the point where it's ready. What kind of keyboard? I'm using a Razer Black Widow Tournament Edition something. How does Elon Musk earn money if he gets paid minimum wage? Does he have to sell shares every time he needs toilet paper? Lol, never understood this. Well, I imagine he was not making minimum wage for a while, right? So he's probably got some money in the bank. But then also, when you own a large part of a company, it's very easy for a bank to give you a loan with some of that as collateral, right? Or for friends to give you a loan, you wouldn't need a bank in that case. Like, it's just totally fine. You sign something with a friend saying, you're loaning me $10 million, and if I don't pay you back in 10 years, you get 1% of SpaceX, right? Like, a lot of people would offer that deal or take that deal. I don't know what he actually does, but Do I usually program with just one? Yeah, when I program, it's usually just one monitor. I've never been a multi-mon programmer. Maybe I would if the monitors were a little smaller. But so when I stream, I have you know, a separate monitor with the stream chat. But, you know, for programming, the way I program when I'm not streaming is very much like what you see when I do stream. I alt-tab back and forth between, you know, this and whatever else in the game. It's just the way I work. I'm not a context switcher. I'm a do one thing at a time person. I'm still looking at this dashboard to see if there's anything that I can turn on the channel that'll make it interesting. I don't really see a lot. So, I don't know, man. What is collections? Oh, put all your best videos in one spot. Yeah, we don't have that. Live. The live dashboard stats say I have 0 viewers right now, which is clearly not true. Can I tell us when the next talk will be? I don't know. I don't have anything scheduled. Do you mean like a general game industry speech or like a compiler demo? The answer is I don't know for both of those, but they're different I don't knows. Dude, there's people hosting me. That's great. Oh, okay. All right, if anyone knows what I should look on the dashboard to do anything cool with the channel, let me know, but I don't see anything. There's no fact below the stream. Yeah, I've been meaning to do one for a while. It just, that takes effort. That's not just a button that I can push. I'd have to write text. Am I speaking from experience for the bank loan thing? No, I've never gotten a bank loan. I'm just saying, if you own something that's very valuable but illiquid, then it's very easy to get a loan, in my understanding. Would I give Elon early access to this programming language for 1% of SpaceX? Yes, I would. He would be very foolish to give me 1% of SpaceX for such a thing. Do I think I would use the extra horizontal room on an ultra-wide monitor? I don't actually know. The current, like 16 by 9 and 16 by 10 are awkward because they're not really wide enough. Like when I do, you know, I do like 2 up a lot of the time. And here we don't happen to have any wrapping lines, but a lot of the time you end up with a lot of lines that wrap and it's uncomfortable, right? So, although that's more true on a laptop, this is almost wide enough. So I don't know. I've never really considered it, but I might try it sometime. I don't want to do emotes because emotes, I think, degrade the quality of conversation. I mean, they're really funny when everyone's spamming emotes, but like, you know, I like that we seem to be able to maintain at least some degree of people talking about things on this chat. So I'd like to keep it that way, and I think emotes is the opposite of that. Okay, let's get started. For the past couple days, or the past couple of streams, not on consecutive days, we were doing audio stuff. We're now waiting for headphones to be delivered. But something came up today where the undo system that has been in place for this games for a long time that we use both in the editor to undo editor operations and during gameplay to undo moves that are mistakes. It's really still kind of this hacky thing that I put together initially, and it's not doing the right thing anymore. It's clear that it needs to be revised. And so I decided that tonight would be the night to at least make a large dent in that. We may not completely finish. It won't be the ideal undo system by the end of this, but it'll be better. So I can sort of talk about what it does. Let's go to entities. So entities, because I was experimenting, right? Oh, let's go to Entity Manager. Entities are all broken into two parts. There's this base entity struct, right, that everybody has. And then, let's go to entities. And then when you have any particular type, like for example, a lily pad, it says using entity to pull in all these fields, and then it's got its own data. Right now in this engine, unlike C++, these two things are stored in uncontiguously. They're stored in different places. So we're using a pointer here, right? So, this is stored in one place in memory, and this is stored in another place. And these are stored so that you could they're stored contiguously so that you could iterate over all of them without taking much of a hit. So that's all fine. So entity consists of two things. One of the sets of things is like things that don't change as a result of gameplay, and another is things that hopefully mostly do change as a result of gameplay, that are the things that you want to undo. So first of all, the undo system is kind of a mishmash of one way of backing up and restoring this data, and another way of backing up and restoring this data. And that's kind of ugly right now. But then the other problem is that the way we do that is with memcopy. So if I go here, so every frame, and this is maybe not the best thing, but it works for now. We sort of scan all the entities and see if they're any different from each other. And to do that, we just say, hey, let's look at the old undoable data, which I'll show you that in a second, and this current undoable data, right? Actually, let's go. So one of the stupid wastes about this system is every entity keeps its own backup of its undoable data, which is actually, it seemed expedient when I started, but it's really not the right thing. So we want to get rid of this. Anyway, we just memcomp these, and that's bad for a number of reasons. For example, if this has a string, and this has a string, and the strings are the same, but they're in different memory, then this memcomp of the struct is going to give a different result. And so we're going to record an undo operation for that entity, even though nothing changed. And that's happening right now in some of the game modes. We just like spam the system with undos. It's really bad. That's not the only problem, but it's one of them. So I started doing some stuff. There are some routines that I did today at work that make it work more like the braid system did, which does not really use memcomp. I'm going to keep this as like a conservative check. So this memcomp is very fast. If somebody passes this test, then we don't need to worry about whether they are different. But if they don't pass the test, if they differ, then we go and we check every actual member here, which is registered with the metadata system. So now if I remember which file I did this other stuff in, I think it's in serialize. Let's search for it. It's in entities. So I have this thing called entities differ, which takes two entities. And then for now, we talk about whether we're talking about the base fields or the derived fields. That's just to fit into the way this thing is working with the two kind of separate systems. But eventually, we're going to unify it and get rid of these. And anyway, we iterate over all the fields. And Oh, drat, I didn't check in something at work. I got to fix something here. We iterate over all the fields and call slots differ, and slots differ does some things. So like if it knows that it's something that can be memcomped, then we just do that. If it's a string, then we actually do a real string compare, which doesn't care what the values of the data pointers are. If it's an array, then we iterate over all the members. Well, we essentially memcomp the array data, right? And then any other type besides these is like not something that's allowed to be had in the entity system, right? So this is just enough smarter than a memcomp to do the things that we need it to do. Okay, the thing that's wrong here that I did at work but didn't check in is that this revision number is for the derived members, and for this one, it's base entity metadata. Yeah. Okay. Any high-level questions about all of that? Before we get too deep into this, I'm going to have to get my food delivery that will arrive eventually, but we'll start trying to nail it. Where does ECS make sense? What do you mean by ECS? So ECS stands for Entity Component System. It's a thing that gets a lot of hype. I don't know why. I don't think entities are that hard. I don't think they justify having very complicated things like that. The only time they might, so if you look at the Unity system, they do a lot of stuff in order to achieve performance, right? But most so-called entity component systems are very low performance systems. So it just falls into this category of things that people get excited about for bad reasons because they don't know any better. This thing that I just showed you about how entities are laid out here is not an entity component system, all right? And it's a little bit different than what we did on the witness and braid, but in principle, it's mostly the same thing. The only difference here is we store things discontiguously in memory. The witness and braid both shipped and made many millions of dollars. So like, you obviously, to make a robust commercial game, you don't need this entity component system stuff. So I don't understand. I just don't understand. So you're going to have to explain to me why you think you need that. In a previous video, you remember me mentioning I wanted to make font rendering easy and accessible. Could I explain more about the font system? Let's do that. Since we're getting into the task, I don't think right now is a good time to do that off-topic question, but maybe when my food gets delivered in 15 or 20 minutes, while I'm eating it, we can have a Q&A time and you can do that. Or if you're not on the stream anymore, we could do it a different time. I just don't want to rat hole on different things. Why not introduce struct comparison as a language feature which does by member comparison with memcomp as an optimization for packed POD structs? The reason is, well, maybe we'll do that eventually, but I don't think it's a language operation. I think it's a library operation because people are going to have different opinions about what exactly constitutes equality, right? So if struct A has a pointer to a foo node in it, well, are foo nodes automatically different from each other if they have different pointer values? Or are they potentially the same, right? The answer to that is different in different cases. And so your equality comparison is going to be different in different cases. But it might be that in a library routine, we can provide 2 or 3 common options, and then you just pick the one that you want. So that is a possibility for sure. Now, that still is not everything that you want. So this whole system here does other things also. Like it checks the revision number and skips fields that are no longer relevant and stuff. Although maybe that's not the right way to do it. Maybe ultimately we use metaprogramming to like bake down an entity struct that's the most recent and doesn't contain all the history. And then well, then we wouldn't have these if statements and stuff. So that might be better. I don't know. And then you could use a more general routine. I don't know. Like some of these facilities just need to mature, and we need to use them and see how they go. But it's not a bad idea to be thinking that way, of providing a general struct comparison. Will we go full persistent data structures and diffs? Well, we're definitely going diffs. Not yet. Right now, my first step, my goal for tonight is going to be humble. We're just going to get the undo system to work, not using a dumb memcomp, right? And using this slots differ and entities differ. That shouldn't be too hard. As long as we can do that, I'll declare victory. And then the question is just how much further do we go? But yeah, eventually we want to be serializing entity diffs because we want all this stuff to be saved in save games, right? And so we kind of want it to be a more serialized format. In slots differ, does the array comparison code have an early out for identical data pointers? Right now it does not. It could, except that I don't think our system will ever produce identical data pointers. Because the thing is, we need to save all that data, because you could destruct an entity and then undo that and bring the entity back. So if we try to share that data, right, then it'll get deleted, right? Unless you're one of these smart pointer people, which I am not. I would rather copy the frickin' data. So, although, I mean, we can just save that when we're about to destroy the thing. It bears thinking about. Yeah. If we see that in the profile, we can look at how to speed it up. Would it not be best to only set and store and undo after you set a flag? Makes it cheaper to test all states, will not spam it, and an edit with multiple time frame steps can be one history event delta. The reason we do not do that, well, it's actually different in the editor and in gameplay. In the editor, we actually call a procedure on everything and tell the undo system, hey, this thing changed. In gameplay, we don't do that. And the reason is it's just very error prone to everywhere in your frickin' program have to set a flag if anytime you set something on an entity. Now, we could use metaprogramming to do that, I think, except that, you know, there might be cases where you pass an address to a vector somewhere and somebody doesn't know what entity it's on, so you can't set the flag and all that, right? I would rather not be error prone. I would rather have things work. Especially, you know, if someone new comes on the project, that's a mistake that they could make, is to forget to do that. It would just be so easy to make that mistake. So now the thing is, during gameplay, the number of entities that can actually change is a minority of our entities, because most entities are going to be, you know, background stuff or collision things that don't get altered. So all we have to do is have a flag on those that say these entities are constant. And then we just don't scan those ones when we're undoing. That's a very common thing. We did that in the witness. We did that in Braid. It's very straightforward. So I assume that we will do that. Why not an event-based approach for the undo system? What does that mean? User input being one of them, and then letting the game simulation predictably reproduce the chain reaction seems lighter and easier to me. What does that mean? You have to explain to me exactly how that's different from what I'm doing. It sounds like you're just saying event-based as a buzzword. Record all events kind of thing. You don't actually want to record all events is the thing. I don't know. We can get into it more. For now, let's actually start trying to do a thing before my food shows up. Okay, so Okay, the first thing I want to do is going back to this. Actually, even if I can do this very basic thing, we can declare victory, which is, because it'll be good progress. I want to take this, I want to take this undoable entity data off the entity, because it's confusing and annoying to have it there. And I just want to have the undo system track this, right? So whatever the old state of the entity is that we're going to diff off of, it's going to live in the undo system instead of here. And yeah. And then there you go. And it'll just record the last state of any particular entity ID. So why don't we just be brave and we'll just delete this line and see how many times that breaks. Yeah, like we're copying fields sometimes. It's not great. Like we're putting the position and all that. That's a garbage. Although, I mean, we have a little bit of a problem here. Which is that we construct this entity, we register it, and then we set the mesh, I think. And so the undo system might get the state of the thing without the mesh, and then we undo backwards and it's not there. So we may have to deal with that. We'll see. Okay. So undo. What we're going to do here is we're going to say, instead of old undoable data, we're going to say old E is get old entity from this handler for E. And old E is going to have an undoable data on it, right? Except we're storing the base data and the derived data separately. That's probably fine. So well, that's not going to compile. So let's make a stub for that so that we can just keep finding these low-hanging fruit problems. So get old entity is going to just be there we go. Okay. So I want to do this with just stubs because I want to review what everybody is doing. You know, because you know, there might be some requirement that I've forgotten about that is very important to accommodate. So here again, we're assuming this is on E, but we have old E. Really, old E should be there. Okay. So we're copying that undoable data. So this is, so later, we're going to change this to something that selectively serializes things to produce the minimum amount of data. Right now, when we record an undo action like this, we're going to say, oh, it's a move And here's the undoable data before the move. Here's the undoable data after the move, right? And then, so this is like, this looks like three things, but it's actually two different things. So record the entities before and after states in the undo action. And then this one is update old E's undoable data to the present, to the current state. So it's a little bit misleading to pack these together like that in three consecutive lines because they mean different things. So we want to put that into old e.undoable data. In fact, let's do this and then that, because this is about setting up the undo action. All this is about setting up the undo action and retiring it. And then this is like, okay, now update the state. And we're not going to touch the derived data yet, even though that all needs to change as well. We're just doing the base for now. Oh, and that's for a redo. So here we're doing the same thing. Okay. So we get the old entity. So now, if we're undoing, right, then that data from that undo action that we just recorded, we need to put that back into the entity's undoable data and the old entity's undoable data, so they start with the same state, so that now if things change during the frame, it changes forward. And if it's a redo, you use the new data instead of the old data, right? Because you can go in either direction. So this is just old E, and this is just old E. Old undoable data, line 503. And what's this one? Oh, this is, so for entity creation, right? Or rather, if we're undoing a destroy or redoing a create, then we need to initialize that undoable data based on the state that was recorded when we destroyed or created the thing. So again, we need to be able to do this and initialize that. All right. Okay, so now this is a weird one. I think this one can just go away. So sometimes we can clone objects in the gameplay. And when we clone something, we were doing this thing where we manually back up the old undoable data. And we don't really want to do that. Oh, yuck. Okay. This is something. Okay. This is something that we have. So we can clone a thing to multiple things and we rotate each one, and we need to do the rotation based on what the thing was before, what the thing's orientation was before we modified anything. And so, yeah, we need to do this. I think that's going to be right. That might break. Mirror projection visuals. Where is that declared? Okay. Okay. Great. Entities, line 690. This is just, yeah, another backup. Runtime only flags. Yeah, so the problem here, I'm going to write down on my to-do list. That we often make an entity and then set properties on it. So like the first frame after we make an entity, we need to change state on it or something. All right. Undo, line 369. Mark beginning. Okay. Called undo here for some, let's call it handler for consistency sake. Where's my thing? Hey, we compile now. We're totally not going to run. If we try to run now, we barf. But that is fine. That is as expected. Now, my next step would be to declare that procedure, but my food dude is 2 minutes away. So let's actually take it into mildly off-topic questions are allowed, because it's food break already. I'm going to take a minute and run downstairs to meet this dude. What was the question that somebody had that I said wait until food time? I don't remember now. Someone's asking about thread local storage. I'll answer that after I meet the food dude. Okay. Back in a minute. Back in a minute. Okay, the food dude has duded the food. And we are back. So while I am duding my food, then we can do mildly off-topic questions. Still about programming. You meant a global flag if any entity has changed and it scans all entities for a change. You have to set that flag. When do you set the flag? We don't actually spam this every frame, though, actually. It only happens at certain predetermined times, I think. Or, I mean, if you can afford to do it on any frame, you might as well do it every frame because you don't want frame hitches, but... If the game simulation is deterministic, the same player actions leads to same game outcomes. You could record the player actions instead of the chain of state changes, as long as all of those changes have a reverse operation. Yes, I am aware of this. How do you go backward, though? Right? You say as long as all of those changes have a reverse operation, well, okay. Most things naturally don't have a reverse operation, right? Like if you're going to set a value on an entity to y, how do you go backwards to whatever the value was before that? You have to make that reversible somehow. Guess what? That's the code we were just looking at. What is for dinner? Poke bowl, but it's not really a bowl. It's like poke cardboard carton. I've implemented the implicit context system in C++ with thread local global variables. But I noticed every access to the context generates 3 LEA instructions because of the TLS. Do you think it's still worth it? How often is the context accessed in big programs? So LEA instructions are not by themselves slow. What makes that slow or not is whether they're causing cache misses. So that's, I don't really remember how TLS is implemented, so I can't answer that question. How often is the context accessed in big programs? It's a very broad question because it depends on what you put in there. The most useful context members, I think, are accessed when you're doing things that otherwise would be pretty slow, like heap allocating or logging a log message. But You certainly can put just regular variables in there. So, I don't know. Someone's asking if the goal of making the language pleasant when dealing with memory has been achieved. I would say we've gone pretty far toward meeting that goal, but also my idea of what that means now is very different from what it was when we started doing things. To get the rest of the way there, I think it involves work that we do once all the basics of the language are finalized. Because it's like things that the compiler or the libraries help you with. And so that's a little bit lower priority than basic things. How are dynamic arrays implemented? Do they keep memory aligned? Well, they're not implemented in a sense. Like the thing that allocates your dynamic array is just a library routine that you can call your own version of. So there's no real answer to that. Have I tried Go, D, or Rust since my initial video? No. Nope. I am too busy to spend time programming in various languages. It's just not, it just doesn't work that way for me. I have been taught that business logic should not be tested through the UI and instead be tested via command line script. That's wrong. I have been struggling with this view. I am wondering what your thoughts on this are and whether or not applying it to the undo redo system would yield more convenient tests. Okay. So the one thing about not being able to test, about not testing things through the UI is being able to run a batch test from a server or something is very convenient, right? And it's a good way to thoroughly test your things. But that doesn't mean a separate command line script has to do that, because the more complicated your program is, the more there's just going to be functionality in there that is very deeply separated from the command line arguments. And like, do you have to program a bunch of command line arguments just to propagate test instructions? That's bananas. So I would say that falls into this category of advice, which is most advice, which is well-meaning but mistaken and will do more harm than good if you follow it too much. Someone's asking about SOA. And does it have the assumption that you are performing a bulk operation on the structs? Well, yes. That's what it's for. It seems like it would be counterintuitive to have a one-time operation where you change the structure in memory. Why? Why? Oh, we don't change the structure in memory. You either leave it stored as SOA or non. That's not something you change back and forth all the time because that would be slow. You can, on various occasions, like if you have a non-SOA version of a struct and you want to assign it to an SOA slot or something, the compiler will do that conversion for you, but that's not meant to be a thing that you do rapidly all the time, right? That's a data copy which you'd like to avoid. When rendering, do you send the command directly to the graphics card when it is called by the program, or do you add it to a buffer of commands to be dealt with later? The answer to that is that all modern GPUs buffer up instructions that you don't even exactly know what they are, and then flush that when they deem it appropriate. So it's not really something that you directly control ever. Do I ever lurk in other game development streams? Very rarely. Simply because the pace of most streams is pretty slow, honestly. Like even when I host people sometimes, I'm just like, oh, I hosted this guy and he's not really saying very much and not really typing very much. I go to Handmade Hero sometimes because Casey's a friend of mine. Is there any aspect of the language I find currently lacking? Well, it's not done, so there's plenty of things that are lacking, but we're working on them. Someone is asking, what do I usually define as a prototype? And the answer is, I don't really think in terms of prototypes anymore. I have a lecture about developing prototypes on YouTube, but that's from like 15 years ago or something. I don't do things that way anymore. I just build the things that I want to build, and I build them in a way that gets where you get a lot of momentum early, right? And you can see what you're building early and then refine it. I'm not going to answer the parallelism feature question because somebody already asked that on the stream, sorry. Is there anything Haskell does that I like? Not really, no. Do I see Chris Hecker anymore? Not much. Okay. Any on-topic questions about exactly what we were doing before the food dude showed up? About this undo system? Or should I dive right back into it? Off-topic question again. You're writing a scanner and it's a big switch statement. That doesn't sound right, first of all. Your friend told you to put each long case into its own function, even though these get called once. Is her advice good? I'd have to see the code. It's very suspicious to me that you have a giant switch statement to begin with. I mean, I guess I could see it structured that way. But yeah, I mean, you probably want to call functions, yeah, to be sane. I mean, if that turns out to be slow, you can always, re-inline them. It's not a big deal. Okay. Scanner is another word for lexical analyzer, like the first stage of a compiler. So he's sort of asking about, lexical analysis phase. Probably for a class, I would guess. Okay, so now we're going back to the undo system, and we're moving the storage of the old entity state to, well, one of the storages of the old undo state from the entity into the undo handler. There's, of course, two, because we have this old undo state pointer thing that is also there for the derived data, and we're going to deal with that eventually after we get this other part working. And after I spill drinks on myself. Okay. We had this stub where we were asserting false. So get old entity. And I'm going to pass another argument because I think I want to be a little bit hardline about this and say sometimes when I want to get this, it must already exist. And other times it's okay if it does. Well, let's get old entity. So here, if something is in this loop, it must already exist, I'm going to claim, right? So we don't want to create it here. Here, actually, let's make separate routines. Let's say create old entity. We're going to be very clear about what we're doing and not be mushy. Here, we're moving something. It really had better exist. We had better have an undo record for this or we did something wrong. I just know these asserts are going to fire, but that's part of getting the code right or getting your idea about what you're doing right. If we're creating or destroying an entity, okay, I'm going to say that if we're creating, we shouldn't have a record, right? And you know what? We shouldn't be doing this. Yeah. Okay. So we're only, in whatever our storage is for these entities, we're only going to maintain things that are actually live, right? So we're going to have a get, we're going to have a create, and we're going to have a remove. And these are all incomplete. Okay. Well, how do we store these entities? Ideally, we would have a hash table. Do we go straight for the hash table or do we do some super lame? Let's just be so lame. No, let's use a hash table. Why not? Okay. We're going to have a hash table. It's going to be a table from ID to whatever. So I'm going to say old E is find handler.old entity table. Oh, did we call it table find? Table find pointer handler.old entity table, comma, e.entity ID, right? We're going to assert old E is not null, and we're going to return it. That's it, right? Now for create, we're going to say, if we're a developer, let's just put in this assert where we say this, and we assert that it is null, because that had better not be there. We don't really have an extra debug switch right now, which maybe we should. Okay. So because we're going to create one, you know, here I'm going to say dummy is entity copy undoable data. Wait, do we do that manually? So we just make an entity, and then we put it in the table, which is going to be a copy, but whatever. We should have an add by pointer or something. So we have an old entity, and then we don't have a way to return the pointer to the thing that's actually in the table. Actually, let's do that. Okay. So we create an old entity, we get an old entity, and remove old entity is just going to be do we not have a table remove? How is that even possible? I know that's why we... I know that's why we have table find pointer. Who calls that? Did we put a remove somewhere else for some reason? Maybe I was doing it for a demo program. Okay, so the problem is it's not straightforward to remove something from this kind of a hash table. Because so there's two kinds of hash tables. You can have a kind of hash table that chains things together in buckets under each hash value, and there it's easy to remove something. Or you can do this kind, in which you just keep putting things in consecutive buckets, right? So if you look at our table find, so we basically say find the index of the bucket, and then while our hashes are non-zero, then if the hash is the right one and if the key is the right one, we return that value, right? So we could either do the good thing, which would be like to scan forward to find the last guy who has this same hash and map that backward. The problem is you could run together two different hashes and then it's not clear to me if you know what the right answer is without moving an arbitrary amount of stuff. So maybe I do a thing where we just stomp the key value with an invalid key that will not match anybody. I think that's what we do. How do you handle it when two things happen on the same frame? Wait, what? With this kind of hash table, how do you handle it when two things happen on the same frame? I'm not sure what those have to do with each other. What does two things happening on the same frame have to do with a hash table at all? Those things are orthogonal issues. If they're just consecutive, what makes it different than an array? Because the expected case is that you don't iterate through this loop very much. You maybe look once or something, right? This is just to handle if you get very unlucky or if your table is way too full, but the table will auto expand before it gets full. How much do you store in the undo stack? Enough data to undo the information, to undo the operation. If the table stores things consecutively, how does it determine what happened first? Okay, this is not a table storing consecutive actions. This is a table storing backup state for every gameplay entity. One entry per entity, right? So that later, if one changes, we compare it versus the previous state, and then we know what to record. That's what this table stores. So we don't care about sequentiality in this table at all. Yeah. Okay. Well, Yeah, I'm going to say this is just a table clobber entry and then I'm going to make this routine. I'm going to say table clobber entry we're going to call this invalid clobber key. Without having to expensively operate on the table, we just replace the key with a key that the user knows will never legitimately be searched for. This means the table stays just as full as it was. Oh. Until we resize, at which time we ignore anything that used the clobber key. Okay, well, here we're going to put that there. And so when we resize, expands, okay, so when we expand, so if people didn't think about the fact that there could be clobbering happening, we don't want to accidentally throw some things out. But if they do call clobber, then we assume that they set this clobber key to the right thing. So, yeah. Let's do this. Okay. Let's just call it clobber key. Clobber key, and this is right? Okay, so we set the clobber key. Only call this once. All right. Remember how I said we would declare victory if we got one simple thing done? Sometimes a simple thing is not a simple thing. Okay, so when we do clobber, we say assert table.clobber key is set. All right. And then we get the hash for the key. I don't want to call this invalid clobber key anymore. I just want it. So we get the hash. So we get the hash and we do the same damn loop that we've been doing. And if the hash matches, if the key matches, then table.keys index is the clobber key instead. And return true, return false. Okay. Well, then here, we want to clobber the entry. We don't pass the clobber key anymore. Here we say an undo handler has old entity table, which is a table mapping from PID, which is an entity ID, to entity, right? So when we reset undo, okay. This is actually going to be the default clobber key, but we set it anyway. Okay. We wanted pointer to table given to table. Why? Okay. That's fine. We can pass a pointer for now, even though that's not what the pointer in table find pointer is supposed to mean. Okay, so we don't have reset. We call it table reset. It's fine. When we have more namespace libraries, we can call that reset, and it'll be work. Clobber key 189. All right. Oh, I forgot to, when we expand, I forgot to check the clobber key. So for every hash, if we didn't set the clobber key, or table.clobber key, or old key sub index is not equal to the clobber key, then we add. So if it is equal to the clobber key, we get rid of it. And then we just maybe don't have as many items. Okay. Old keys subindex Since I'm doing this, I'm just going to say key, not k, key, key, and then, but what's wrong? Looks like an overloaded operator. What are you talking about? I should give a better error message for that, but table is a hash table. Clobber key is a value of key type. That looks right to me. I don't know what the compiler's problem is. Am I missing something? Am I smoking crack? Do we have a compiler bug? Simple things are not always simple. How do you expand the table if changing the size also changes which index results from a given hash? Well, you don't store the index after you resize. The index is only valid for a certain table size. You don't keep it around. Can you keep count of the number of clobbered elements to help pick the next size? You certainly could. For now, I just want this to work. How am I handling memory? Do I have a memory pool or something? That is complicated. It's a long answer that I don't want to sidetrack on right now. You could get memory from anywhere you want. Okay. Yeah, this is a weird thing. This should be of key type. And this should be of key type. Did I mess up? I might have to put more debug information in the compiler. It's not, which is good because people will enjoy having that. But so let's say, just for now, what if I make this a table of int? That won't work because we'll get. What is catching my alt tab? Yeah. So now we're just going to complain. I am not sure why it's saying overloaded operator. If this works, I might just source code location. Oh, right. Oh my God. Okay. So the problem here is that some people somewhere, which I should provide more information here, but someone somewhere in the program is making a hash table where the key is a source code location. And we don't define equality on structs right now. here's what we need to do. Yay, okay. Can clobber is false. Let's hope this all works. Now we're getting into compiler feature territory. So because some tables are created with key types that don't... Wait, how do we match the key then? Oh, because we... Wait. No, that can't be right. Hold on. Rewind. Abort. We must support equality. Oh, equality, right. Equality on a struct is just a mem comp. So that's not actually the problem. The cast to int is the problem. It's not valid for everybody. That's fine. I was about to get carried away. I apologize. So how do I do this? I'm not sure. So what's going on is someone somewhere in the program is instantiating a struct with a key type maybe we handle double equals correctly for structs, but not equals. Like, do we compile if I do this? Yes. Oh my God. Okay. Here we go. So we detect equality on structs, but not equal. That's so stupid. And people wonder why we're not giving them access to the compiler yet. It's stuff like that. Stuff like that. So it's not that key type. The key type is a variable, right? So it could be anything, but like structs are supposed to be comparable with equals or not equals, and apparently we just forgot not equals. Okay. Whoa, we're running. I doubt I'll be able to successfully undo. Oh my God, I'm undoing. It worked. Look, I'm pushing this block around. Oh no, I pushed it into a corner and I can't get it back. Let me undo. That we can declare victory, sort of. I mean, I have to make sure it works in the editor, which God only knows, but... Wow, okay. I didn't totally expect that to work and not trip off asserts. Look at all the crazy stuff we did. I mean, maybe clobbering. All right, here's what we do. Oh, there we go. That didn't take long. See, that was a test that didn't come from the command line for the person who was asking about this. Okay, so we're saying get old entity and it doesn't exist. Frickin' Windows. All right, so let's build a debuggable build there. But still, that worked better than I had any right to expect. Okay. Let's try this again. As soon as it gets to this level, we barf. All right. So we're getting old entity, and it does not exist. We're calling scan one entity. We're noting a destroyed entity. It's a particle emitter. I think we maybe just don't record particle emitters. Oh, that's probably not right. Let me just check though. No, we catch them up, but we don't explicitly exclude them. Okay. So a particle emitter is destroying itself but it doesn't exist in the undo system. Now, interestingly, this isn't a new bug, actually. This is a bug that we had before, but that I wasn't asserting on because it was on my list of things to debug. So now we've made it more serious, and now it has to be handled. Let me get a colder tea. Why do I use an IDE still? Well, I'm using a debugger right now. I don't use any of the rest of this to build programs, but this is the best debugger that I have access to, so I'm using that. Okay. What am I doing here? I'm trying to figure out why we have a particle source. Is this anytime there's a particle source? Let's look at the handler. It's got pending actions. A creation of this entity ID. Yeah. So what's happening is we created and destroyed this particle system before we acted on it. Right? So, or wait. Schedule for destruction of this particle system. We note that we destroyed it. And so we record any changes. Okay. Yeah. This is a problem, I guess. Okay. So wait, when we note created entity, we don't actually create. We could create the record here. But I would have thought that node ECD does that. Node ECD, which stands for entity creation or destruction. Nope. Okay. Create old entity. So here, when we add this to pending actions, we're just going to do that. See if that helps. Ah! So now we're double creating. Why are we double creating? Well, let's run that in the debugger. See, sometimes when you try to be a little bit meticulous about things, you have problems, but it's better than just being confused about things. Okay, so we're calling undo mark beginning. Oh, right. So pending, the handler's pending actions. Let's make an optional argument for now, because we just want to make sure that we have space for people. But if people got created via that method, okay. To refuse to record pending actions. I also realized I don't, oh, I do call table reset somewhere, right? Don't we? I'm a little squirreled out by reset undo versus undo mark beginning. We're going to maybe have to think about that a little bit. But for here, let's just say create old entity. Okay, so we only assert, well, actually, doing the wrong thing. If optional, if not optional, assert, and no matter what, return old E. There we go. Great. Oh wait, that's not a developer anymore. Statements in. Okay, I'm not thinking. If old E, assert false. There we go. That's what I meant. This is still going to assert as soon as we start, because I didn't. Oh, maybe not. All right, we got further. Why don't I just make debug builds every time for now? I don't have generating a debug build bound to a hotkey right now, so when I just slam the hotkey, it goes to the wrong thing. So these playthroughs also have undos in the recording, which is why this is testing an undo system. All right. So we're creating an old entity from doing an undo. So we're undoing a destroy. The destroy should have clobbered the thing. So did we not do it? Looks like a valid entity. So either we did not remove it from the table or clobber it, right? Or the clobber is broken, which is possible, or something else. Well, I got to give food guy a tip before I forget. Food dude. I mean, not food guy. That's a different guy. Food dude. Food dude. All right, that is taken care of. So, this is one of those things that's a little bit annoying to debug because it's like, well, okay, let's hope that this entity ID, let's run it again and see if we get this same ID. And if so, then maybe that ID won't happen in the other levels, and then we could set a breakpoint on it. Maybe. All right, so it is the same ID. Okay, so let's check the pendings. No pending actions. Okay. So now when we destroyed this, we should have clobbered it. So let me go to my real text editor for a second. When we noted a destroyed entity, oh, we don't here, right. In the same way that we do a create here, we need to do a destroy here. Let's see if that helps us, or if that makes it even worse. Oh, we got further. Okay. Well. Wait, we're barfing in draw. So maybe we're not backing up. Remember how I said we might have a problem where we're creating things and then like not all the information is maybe there? That might be happening. I don't know. 1209. What is going on? We're asserting, okay, there's something in potentially visible entities, and it's scheduled for destruction. That bothers me. Why would that have changed? I don't think that this has to do with the undo changes that we are doing right now. I think I just haven't run this test in a few days and this broke differently. Well, when we schedule for destruction, we don't appear to remove it from potentially visible entities. So of course, okay, we got to search to see only 3 files even refer to this, right? So potentially visible. That's when we reset it, when we reset the entire entity manager. That's that file. This file adds it to potentially visible entities. Ah, here we go, unregistered entity. Removes it. Okay. Schedule, okay, so schedule for destruction. Removes it there. So that's weird. How is this happening? Shouldn't be possible unless we destroy something while we are iterating. That's always bad news. That is always bad news. I'm not sure why we would be doing that in, whoops, debug build. Not sure why we would be doing that in the draw loop, but let's see. And then what level, we could just load straight to this level and maybe test. So it goes faster. Okay. So manager's universe name is Bardic arrangement. So we're going to go to local.variables. And we're going to start on Bardic arrangement. because we can just test that one level. So we go straight to it. Let's just try that, right? So we start. We're on Bardic arrangement. I press Control T, and we get the same problem. Great. So that's faster. This assert is not going off. So why? What the hell? Okay, it's time to do unreasonable things. Let's just loop over the whole thing and assert. We'll do that there. Someone remind me to get rid of these remove me's. And here, so anytime we set scheduled for destruction, we're just going to check this. Maybe somehow the undo system is setting scheduled for destruction. I don't. Oh. I don't think it can set it manually, though. Maybe we get in the array more than one time. That's my theory, is we're somehow getting in the potentially visible array. Oh, the runtime only flags. Right. That was one of the things that was getting manually. We'll talk about this in a second. Entities line 740. That seems like a different place. Yeah. So here we're at least catching the problem. Or actually, to make sure this is where it's happening, right? We can, before we set scheduled for destruction, check. And then we do this, we call in register entity, and then after we check. And so this one shouldn't go off, and this one should. And that's how you sort of, that's how you sort of pincer attack to determine where exactly a problem is happening. Yeah, okay. Yep, so this isn't going off, this one is, so that's good. Let me write down to remove that. Okay, the problem is we only remove something from this list if it has this runtime only flag set. And unfortunately, the runtime only flags are stored in that undoable entity data. I don't know why. That might just be a mistake, or there might be a reason for it. If there's a reason for it, then we need to sync them. But I'd rather not frickin' put it there, frankly. So if an entity is hidden, if it's in a moving entities array, or if it's in potentially visible entities array, those are all accounting things that only should be for the entity manager. So like, I don't think that we put that there. Now the question is, there might be some entities of version 1 Okay, we're just going to leave this dumb field. Nobody's going to use it. And then I'm going to just put runtime only flags here. None of this gets serialized. This used to be undoable data, but that seemed like a big mistake, bro. Okay. Let's just see what happens. I don't even know. Maybe chaos will occur. Maybe there was a reason that needed to be there. Well, we successfully tested this level. See, you just untie the little knots that you tied over all the time you were building the system, and it gets cleaner. So not all these tests are going to play correctly. With some of the timing-oriented interactions, the tests don't play back correctly. But most of the levels should play back correctly. This is one of Maya the Intern's levels, so is this. Oh, some of these I don't want to spoiler myself on, so I might have to close my eyes. Yeah, all the ones that have failed so far are ones that I expect to fail, but for different reasons than what we're talking about today. I need to record a shorter solution to this level. These levels, those are also Maya the Intern's levels. They're great. Now I'm closing my eyes. I don't want to get spoiled. So eventually all those levels you just saw are going to look nicer like these ones do. These are sort of the levels that have had the most visible work so far. Really hear me very well over the music. Okay. I'll just turn it down a bit. Maybe that's a little better. I don't know. Maybe it's still too loud. Yeah, this is seriously dank spoiler zone territory. That's true. Well, the undo system seems to be working pretty well, which is good. And maybe next stream will be the next step. I still have to test it out on the editor after all this test finishes. That was my level right there. Can they be run headless? I don't know what you mean by they. Huh, those weren't supposed to fail, those two dragon levels. So I'm not sure what happened there. I'm gonna have to look into that. Oh, it might be the orientation when cloning thing that I changed earlier today. We need to test that. Ah, this test is totally broken. Yeah, like I said, all the ones with timed elements, they don't totally work right now. That one was supposed to fail because it's an unfinished draft level. There's like 10 unfinished draft levels that are in the list here for some reason. Wait, didn't we already do these? Maybe not. Maybe I'm hallucinating. I don't want to spoiler myself on these. These are Maya's levels. All right, that was everything. We didn't fail on that many levels. The only ones that I didn't expect fails on were these mirror clone dragons 1 and 2. And so, you know, we were tested 154. We failed 11. It's fine, since we expect all those. Except these. So let's I just want to know is that right? Okay, well, oh, I just did an undo and it locked up. What just happened there? Well, the cloning, oh God, Windows. I can't find my mouse cursor to click on the button. There we go, all day. So we have two problems. We have an assert And we have the fact that the orientations don't come out correct, even though they're frickin' supposed to. Actually, let me make a test level, like this level right here. We can just set this up. All right, well, the editor has problems right away. Maybe I should stop being so picky about... All right, let me write down the list of problems. Dragon clone. Undo on dragon clone. And editor usage. This is actually the most important problem because nobody can do anything. Like I can't check in this code if it asserts on the editor. So, oh, I wasn't running from the editor. So that was just me trying to destroy an entity, trying to clobber something. Oh, we don't set the clobber key. What? How did we not set the clobber key? We never call undo reset. We don't really have a table init or undo init. All right. I doubt that's the only problem because we're calling this in a totally different way. Whoops. Debug build. Debug build. All right, so we load, delete. Hey, we can delete things. We can undo those deletions. We could select a mirror. We can rotate it. We can undo those rotations. We can select a lot of things. We can override color them. We can pick all these colors. We can undo all the colors. We can delete. We can paste guys and edit fields and undo all those things. I don't know, the editor kind of seems to work, maybe. I don't know. I don't know, people. What do you want from me? Ocean. Oh, let's go to a level with an ocean. Do some frickin' ocean edits, because those are different. Undo those. And then these, which are not undoable, but which shouldn't crash anything. Well, it seems okay for now. Sometimes you got to break some eggs. If people have a problem, we'll fix it. Windows is mad because the Benny Hill music stopped. We never call undo reset sounds imperative. Well, maybe. I mean, it's not exactly an init function, though. It's a reset function. So, like, you know, okay. So let's go back to our previous situation. since we're no longer worried about the editor. Okay, so this is what it says. Well, I guess that's right. I forget how to do this level and not get owned by the dragon. Oops. Okay. Yeah, see this, they're both supposed to be facing to the right, but in fact, one of them ends up facing south. That is wrong. Of course, I'm able to undo now, and it's not barfing, so maybe we also fixed, that was an assert happening. What did we do in the editor? Oh, yeah, maybe that's the same problem. Okay, so I want to just set up this same situation on like this level, which is Bardstone test. Okay, so we're just going to say, look, there's a mirror. There's another mirror. Was that the right one? And then let's delete some of these things. We don't need all these things. They're just going to confuse me. And let's go back to the palette level. Let's pick a nice dragon. And we'll put them there and rotate them like that. Like that. I don't know. Something like that. Okay. So, bam. Well, let's put the player somewhere where she doesn't just get killed. Okay. So it kind of depends on which order it does them in, which one turns, but one of them is ending up in the wrong orientation, clearly. And I think I know why. I'm not sure. Is there no way to run the automatic test for just the level you're on? Yes, there is. I totally demonstrated that a few minutes ago. It's just that I know that the test will fail, so I'm not that interested. I want to understand why it's failing. Yeah. So, so we had this clone situation. The problem is okay, let's put this. The problem is we're changing the orientation once and then we're rewriting it the second time around. So, well, I think. Anyway. We're going to call this entity source. We're going to make a very long name. Source entity orientation before clonings. Wait, what? Why am I doing that? Why doesn't the Mirage store its orientation on itself? Oh, because it could change. Yeah, okay. Whatever, we're just going to continue doing it this way. R dot source entity orientation before clonings is fudge. I only have the ID here. So, you know, here's where we're picking which thing gets reflected in a mirror, and no, quaternion. All right. Maybe somebody else calls that routine also. I don't know. Oh, we got to rename it. Orientation is not scan results. Okay, now I can't write the executable because I've got it open in the frickin' debugger. All right. Yay! They're the right way. So now we go to what's it called? Oh, it's mirror clone dragons. Or is it clone dragon? Why is it? All right, so test. So for the person who was asking about this, hey, we succeeded. How about this one? Hey, we succeeded. So great. I kind of feel like we should rerun the test over everything again. So let me start that up, and then let's do it on a release executable, which will take 30 seconds to build. Get another snack while this is happening. Okay, let's run this, and we'll do some questions while it's running. Does anyone have questions? You said you forgot how to do the level, so I thought running the test might remind you. Oh, yeah. Yeah. You can actually slow down the playback speed, too. So there's that. Why was a dragon ghost image appearing on the purple circle in the test level you just made? I don't remember seeing that problem, but there is a bug that results in a ghost image showing up in the wrong place sometimes. It's on the bug list, so that might be what you saw. Lambda calculus is really easy to implement. That's true if you want it to be really slow and have a lot of problems. What happens if you have to debug a level you haven't played? Well, then you have a problem and you have to cancel the project because it's too hard. Not questions, questions. You could have used generative tests to figure out what tests failed and then run them only visually. Well, I can do a lot of things that involve more programming. Will this come with an HTTP server? I don't know. Like, writing a basic HTTP server is actually really easy. The hard part is like all the other weird stuff. So like, as soon as you want SSL support or something, or cookies, that's the annoying part. Like a HTTP server that responds to basic HTTP and serves documents is pretty easy though. I don't know. I'm not going to write it, but somebody might. Did I get the 5.1 headphones? No, they're scheduled for delivery tomorrow. What is that PID type of reflector and reflected? I think it's a 32-bit integer. It's just an entity ID. PID is like a historical name that doesn't make that much sense. It's an entity ID. You love my past games. Keep it up. Thank you. We're going to keep making games. Did you hire Jonah Ostroff or just license the game? We can't talk about that stuff right now. Sorry. When we announce it, we will announce it. Is the entire project written in this new language? Yes. We do interface with a few libraries written in C. For example, we use the STB image library and STB sprintf for some things. Just like you might link to a few libraries from any project, but for the most part, it's all code in the new language. Why do you make your own engine instead of using Unity or UE? That is a long, long answer that I don't want to do right now. Somebody could maybe link you on YouTube to me ranting about that. Do you find it more difficult to design interactive block pushing puzzles to have good insight moments compared to line puzzles in The Witness? How do you avoid them just becoming depth first search problems? Okay, it's too soon for me to answer that definitively because we're not really that far into designing the new levels for this game. We're working that out right now. But I will say that when you go into it knowing what the idea of the level should be, then as long as that idea is kind of clear to the player, then they have a good probability of having that kind of insight moment that you're talking about. So Oh, there's one more thing I should test before I check this in. How are the compile times comparing the no jobs compile against the multi-threaded version? The multi-threaded version is not that much faster because the only thing that's multi-threaded right now is the parser, and the parser doesn't take that much time. So no jobs is not that much slower. But, you know, as time goes on and we parallelize more, it'll become proportionally different. How can you still program so late at night without it devolving into just a series of mistakes to be fixed later? Well, I will tell you, right around now, I'm starting to get tired. You know, I didn't sleep that much last night. I slept like 6.5 hours. So not on full rest. If I were starting to do something difficult right now, that might be a bad idea. But I'm not. I'm just tidying up the thing that I started earlier tonight, and that's not so bad. What about modding support? Will people be able to create their own levels, entities? I don't know if we're going to do that in the initial release, but if people dig the game, then maybe we'll release modding support shortly afterward. It's going to be hard just to get this game done, let me put it that way. But, you know, if people want to be creative with it, then I want to support that. So, yeah. Any new features in the pipe for the compiler, or still mostly tightening things up for the release? Still mostly tightening things up for release. In fact, the past month has actually been work on the game just to make sure that stuff is working out. So we haven't done that much compiler stuff lately. Sad to say, but we'll get back to it soon. Who is that person that you were saying designed some of the levels? We have a summer intern who's doing design with me, and she's doing a good job. So that's, you know, sometimes you do something and it works out, and this is working out great. And we're going to be able to ship a lot of the levels she makes. And the ones that we won't ship are just because, well, probably it's too early to say anything definitively, but any of the levels that we've made that we won't ship, it's probably because, you know, they use rules of interaction that we've decided are not the right ones. But that's part of the process, is we're deciding what the gameplay rules should be as we work on things. Is there anything in the compiler that may benefit from usage of GPU? It's hard to say. I mean, there's so much headroom we have on the CPU to go faster. But once that's done, can you use the GPU to help compile? Maybe. It's just not an area that I have a lot of experience with. It's really hard. Like, GPU pipelines are really deep. So you need to be able to have a thing that is very separate from the rest of your workload. But maybe such a thing can be found. Hey, look, we finished. And we only failed 9 levels now, and they're all the ones we expected. So that's great. Okay, there was one more thing I was going to test, which was to go in here and turn on the cheats. And I want to go to here, and I want to do this. And I want to do this. And I want to do this. I want to redirect this river and then make sure that works with the undo system. Spoilers! Spoilers. Yep, look, it's working. Yep, great. Ship it! And then here we say undo system revamp part 1. That's great. So part 2 is going to be converting the derived entity data to be stored in the same place and no longer on the entity. I don't want to do that tonight because, like we were saying, it's, you know, you get tired, you make mistakes. Part 3 then is going to be to go back to that code that I pointed out at the beginning, this stuff, and actually use this, which isn't being used yet. I don't know how much of this I'm going to do on stream. Maybe tomorrow I'll find other things to do, and then I'll continue where we left off on stream with these things. That would be nice. Has the intern made any games? I think she's made some class projects. I don't know. I don't remember. It was a long time since we saw her resume. Why would that one pointer be invalidated by further calls to that one mirror reflection pointer function? It's not that a pointer gets invalidated. It's that we're cloning an entity and the entity has already had its orientation changed the first time before we cloned it. So like we're rotating the entity, like we want the clone to be a clone of the entity before we did anything to it. But when we place the first entity, we rotate it. And then when we place the second entity, we're rotating it based on the already rotated entity pose, which is wrong. You can always steal Anna. I think we want Casey's game to get finished, so it wouldn't be good to steal Anna. You're wondering how the lily pads work with the undo system. What happens is we basically record the position of the lily pad when the player moved, right? So it would be tedious to have to undo a bunch of timed moves. Like if you sat there thinking and lily pads moved like 100 squares, you don't want to have to undo 100 things, right? So it's all tied to the player motion. So whatever motion happens since your last move gets undone. There are some rare cases in which that's a little bit non-ideal, but it's a lot better than having to undo every frickin' lily pad yourself. How could the community be involved in the language other than using it? I don't know. I mean, we'll figure that out later. Zach Tillman, yay or nay? I haven't watched any of those videos. I can't say. I have one open in a tab here, but I haven't watched it. Any other questions before we go find someone to host? Oh, dude, I have a button here that runs an ad now. I can run a 30-second ad and make everybody watch it. Partners who run 2 minutes of ads an hour with your current viewers earn about $2 an hour from ads. So I can force you guys to watch ads while I it probably already shows ads to you, right? If you're not, I subscribe to Twitch, so I never see those, but I can force you guys to see ads, and I can make a whopping $2 an hour. That would be amazing. Think about what I could do with $2 an hour. I could just sit here and just keep clicking the run ad button instead of hosting somebody. I could make like $5. For every question about your Emacs theme, run an ad. That's a good idea. Also, when people ask me why I like to build engines instead of using Unreal. Well, we support LLVM. We already do support LLVM. If I could pick the ads to be something really ridiculous and entertaining, I might. But, oh, wait. I can set the ad break length. Dude, I can run 3 minutes of ads in one click. That would be great. great. No, it wouldn't be great, really. I should use this stream marker thing to help me edit later. Just run ads for the witness, yeah. Make a commercial of me ranting. That's a good idea too. So many good ideas. I don't even know what to say about all of this. All right, I guess we're going to find someone to host. Do I work out when I'm being good? I work out, which is not lately, no. Is the witness still the best thing I've worked on, or is the programming language taking its place as your best? You can't compare those. You can't compare a game and a programming language. In terms of its impact on the world, definitely the witness has had more impact because that's been released, whereas the programming language is still, under wraps. Integrate loot boxes into the language. That would be great. Have we seen the new Zachtronics programming game? Yes, I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to it. Let's find someone to host. Knight Rider. They're showing Knight Rider on Twitch.
I hadn't thought about it. Why?
I cook a dynamite cheeseburger.
See what I mean?
David Hasselhoff from the 80s.
That sounds very nice, Michael.
She's a Russian spy. Or something. All right. Let's find someone to host. Let's go to game dev. Landscaping, C++ roguelike dev. We could do that. He doesn't have a camera though. I don't know if this guy says much. He's got the lemmings running, but no music and no talking and no typing. Oh, he says, I thought it's cabbage. Okay, well, we can consider that. Doesn't seem that active. Tooth and tail leaderboards. Oh, Andy is programming.
I should be
Let's host
able
Andy.
to.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for coming by. And hopefully we'll continue this tomorrow.
Still might be able to get it. I need to get this.